Well, thank you indeed for staying with us here on KTN Business. Today it is indeed a pleasure. Now, in this second part of the show, matters smart agriculture. What is the conversation around, well, technology and agriculture improvement in terms of efficiency and productivity? Now, two experts here in studio to speak into that conversation and about a forum that is being held to examine just those, well, perspectives. First off, Bernadette Morgoshi is the CEO and Editor-in-Chief of Smart Farmer. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Peter.
And Boniface Akukud, Director ICT at Calro.
Yes, thank you.
Now, I'll start with you, Boniface. The expert perspective, of course, from the point of research at Calro and all the things that come out of that organization. Now, rain everywhere. 3 months ago, we were in a drought situation. And for many Kenyans, especially those on social media, wondering what is the perspective around technology that can be used to harness these resources so that we start to say we're moving away from rain-fed agriculture. That is technology, right?
Yeah. Yes, true. At Calro, we have generated a lot of technologies. And actually, when we use the word technologies, it's confusing.
Yes.
So I would like to put into perspective.
Yes.
We would like to call them technology, innovation and management practices, in which we rather say teams. Yeah, we could say teams. Because that technology goes on with innovations. There are also management practices that accompany that technology, and that's what we call it teams. Now, in this space, what we need to understand now is now to move to what we call smart agriculture technologies, or what we call climate resilience or climate-ready technologies.
Yes.
Now, a number of them are available. The challenge is there's a big gap between research and practice.
Yes.
The uptake, the upscaling, the adoption, and the adaptation of these teams is not optimal. And that's why we're saying now ICT can bridge that divide.
Why do you think there is a gap?
Yeah, the gap,
dissemination.
The gap is obvious because if you look at the linear model that has been practiced from the colonial time, where research do research, then they hand it over to extensions. Then extensions take it to the farmers. Sometimes they escort the extension to the farmer.
Yes.
That has been the model that we have in this country and many African countries. But you see, if you look at the ratio of extension to farmer, is 1,500 to 1 or 1 to 1,500.
They're very thin on the ground.
So they're very thin on the ground. And that's why the debate has to see how do we bring in the national government, like the research we are at national level, and the county government. But again, as we go around that arrangement, then can ICT technology help? And that's the question that we were saying. And that we're saying, yes, ICT technology can help. And that's why we are organizing this conference, which we call the first East African Digital Conference, Farmer Conference and Exhibition. So that we showcase that, yes, ICT innovations, ICT techniques and tools, and more so the ICT social innovations can help.
It is also a question of the private sector also stepping up and helping disseminate some of these things, the role which we here at KTN have played in the past with some of our shows. It is also the place where people like Bernadette then come in with the Smart Farmer. What do you think has been the perspective in terms of helping disseminate, take this information out there to people? What sort of uptake do you see and what sort of reaction?
Well, we've been able to do quite a lot in terms of taking information to farmers using our magazine, Smart Farmer Magazine, and our online, the website. People have really been excited about this information because, like, when we were beginning, there was a lot of question on whether really agriculture is something worthwhile. So when we started showing people through our magazine and our information about how you can make money from a small piece of land, how to do this, how to grow this, because one of the things we realized is that because the extension officers, as you said, are very few on the ground, farmers were really missing out on vital information. So we started giving them the how-tos. We did research in collaboration with Calro and others, and took this information to the farmers. And it has really been exciting because they've really been excited about it. They've gotten a lot of information. And many others have joined us in this area. Yeah.
Yeah, so coming back to you, Boniface, the fact that the average age of a Kenyan, indeed African farmer, is thought to be north of 60, especially because of the subsistence nature of agriculture, the rain-fed nature of agriculture. And then the perspective that with the introduction of technology, value addition, things like manufacturing, really moving beyond the subsistence and starting to treat it as a business, you can then start to bring in the youth. Do you think what you're doing in terms of developing technology, the TIMS model, so to say, is helping drive this initiative?
Yes, true, it's helping to drive this initiative. Because even what we're looking at, that the technology that we are developing today and the technology that we'll continue to develop must actually address issues like climate change. You've seen a lot of issues around climate change. Must address socioeconomic challenges that are actually around poverty, around unemployment, those the social economy. So we must address, our technology must be in line with those, in addressing the challenges. And that's why we talk about demand-driven technology. So we are not going through the normal conventional technology development, but must be demand-driven. Demand-driven here says who needs it, what technology are needed by the youth. What about urban agriculture? What about smart farming, where you don't have to have 1,000 acres for you to produce anything? What can you produce from a quarter of an acre, from 1 acre? And therefore, the technology must be demand-driven, and they must also respond to the contextual nature, addressing the social, economic challenges, and also addressing the issues of available land. And that's what I'm saying, instead of doing rain-fed agriculture, then we have to move to the smart agriculture, where we can see how can we do integrated agriculture, what kind of technologies are fast maturing, because the climate variability, the climate shocks are already affecting agriculture in a big time. So what are the technologies that can basically respond, and within that span that we're operating in? And again, when you bring in the concept of ICT, the idea here is to attract young people into agriculture, because agriculture, the perception has been that agriculture is for the old, tired, and I mean those who have nothing to do. But if you go to South Africa, for example, the most richest peoples are not professors; they're actually farmers, and because they're actually doing smart farming, they're actually using technology to do farming, and they're making business. Actually, it's a business. So we also have to think about moving from subsistence to farming to commercialized agriculture, where even urban farming come in. For example, we have the curry or the Calro indigenous chicken, which basically even can be done in urban. A number of youths have actually adapted it. And with the help of private sector, the media, other players like smart farming, we're able to take this information, because if we don't take this information to the people, then wrong information goes to the people. So we must find a way in which that we give the information so that we don't allow room for misleading or wrong information. Because if you don't give people the right information, then you create room for them to get the wrong information.
I want to come to you, Benedette, and very quickly, because we're out of time. The fact that there is a role for media to start to to literally help to commercialize, to inform, to take this innovation out to the people. I've seen instances of things like the index-based insurance, the weather-based index insurance, and uptake in very, very few areas in Kenya, apart from, of course, those that are NGO-led. And this is the resilience that we are talking about. Do you think you have been able to play that role?
We are playing that role. One thing is that we need the media to educate and inform, because we are able to really bring out the information clearly to the public. We are trying to do this. It's not easy, because there are far-flung areas, like you say, that are not getting this information. But slowly by slowly, you see people are getting to uptake. They are beginning to understand, especially insurance is not an easy subject. So people wonder, why should I take insurance? But once they get to understand, when we inform them why they need this insurance, then they start getting interested and excited about it.
Okay. Indeed, unfortunately, we are out of time. But thank you for your insights. Of course, we will be coming into the conference itself to be able to, show Kenyans what exactly is going on. But asanteni sana for coming into studio. Yeah. Now, away from that and now going international, now former President, U.S. President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle have entered into a multi-year agreement with Netflix to produce films and series. Now, under the name Higher Ground Productions, the Obamas have the options to produce scripted and unscripted series, documentaries, and feature films. The deal suggests a wider post-White House public role for the Obamas than is typical with the agreement with Netflix, which boasts some 125 million subscribers worldwide, which will give the Obamas a voice outside of the traditional public speaking, books, and charity work that recent presidents have relied on. Well, Rwanda's recent ban on the importation of second-hand clothes and increased tariffs on the imported use of clothes with the intention of eventually phasing them out, and the importation threatens to have a negative economic setback for many. Now, 4 second-hand clothes markets have already shut down in that place in the last year, and many vendors and traders here fear for their future and livelihoods. The Rwandan government argues that the move will boost the country's local manufacturing sector. Now, opening new factories will create more better-paying jobs, and expanding domestic production and consumption will cut its external trade deficit.
So what decision has taken by the Rwanda government, it's really positive decision which can increase more job, more opportunity and more business to the Rwanda.
We want to achieve 2 goals in the country. One of them is to really support the local producers, because they're there. We have some foreign investors that are producing some form of garments. We have C&H, as we talked about, but we have a lot of local Rwandan garment producers as well, who are really, producing very competitive products as well. And so our first goal is to really support those who are in the market, to understand what they need to grow, because we're not just opening up the market for them to do business. We also want to understand how we can make them competitive.
Now, I want to take us back to that conversation about the president, a former president of the US, Barack Obama, and his new movie deal with Netflix, and indeed the place of reality TV today right across the world, and the new trends that are driving media and media consumption, not just in places like the US, but also here in Kenya and right across Africa. And to speak into that conversation, Josiah Kimanzi, he is the consumer experience lead for GFK in this part of the world and for West Africa as well. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Now, it is interesting to see a former president literally start to get into something like television production and that sort of thing. But then, of course, most people will have heard of the Kardashians. There's so many other things we've seen. People being followed around by cameras and that sort of thing, and really speaking to the different ways in which people are starting to enjoy themselves. Yeah. Now, this also speaks to the ways they are consuming this media, and the back of that is a report that has recently come out and done by GFK. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. Absolutely excited to be here. Yes. And I think and to your point about Netflix, I think the central part is content.
Yes.
And how content is being consumed. Now, traditionally, media has been filtered through either TV, which is linear, then came pay TV. Now we have subscription video on demand. And Netflix is also in Kenya. We also have Showmax, we have Viusasa, we have iFlix, we have Kwese. And that's now starting to change the game in terms of how the ecosystem and how consumers actually utilize video. Now, video consumption is not just literally watching. It also means that you're listening. For example, you could be playing a video, that's music, it's playing in your background, but you're actually consuming video. And from what we've seen on Viewscape is that, interestingly enough, half of the amount of time that urban high-end Kenyan consumers
Yes.
do while they're consuming videos is actually free online videos. They also spend a considerable amount of time watching pay TV, which is
Yes.
either live, that like we're doing now. They have now started adapting scheduled TV, which is you would get probably through your Explorer.
Yes.
And it also speaks to, for example, concepts like pay-per-view viewing, which used to become coming through HBO and so on.
Yes.
Now, HBO is actually a property of Netflix.
Yes.
So then you now realize that the need why Obama and Michelle, Barack and Michelle, were actually thinking, hey, you know what? If we go on to Netflix, then we have more control.
Yes.
And then there's a lot more variety.
Talk to us about the place then of the traditional public broadcaster, the traditional mold of television, like KTN, for example, mixed programming.
Yes.
Scheduled, where you'd essentially just switch on your TV and get something that someone has fixed for you,
Yeah.
and not essentially video on demand.
Which is a fantastic question. I think what KTN needs to do as a broadcaster is also to realize that, there's a shift.
Yes.
Things are changing, and you need to be absolutely flexible and understand where the shift is going to. Now, that doesn't mean the role of TV will go away.
Yes.
TV will still play its role. However, the way content is being consumed is changing. As such, KTN Fast, as I told you, half of video that is being consumed is actually free.
Yes.
So KTN needs to start thinking about what
Being
free
in those
platform
places, yes.
can I offer? So, for example, WhatsApp is a free platform. YouTube is a free platform. So you need to think around those areas where it's actually accessible. Secondly, there's an issue of format, right? Ads traditionally were about, a long time ago, it was about a minute. Now it's 30 seconds. Ads will now move to between 5 and 15 seconds. Why? Because there's so much content that is being put out there, either user-generated, either paid for, either earned, that everybody needs to look out to. Now, your share of eyeballs means that your content has to be absolutely engaging. So
Yes.
just let me give you an example. There's all this hype about, Harry's wedding.
Yes.
And there was a clip on the BBC. Now, what one very clever, smart advertiser did was to actually lace their advertising in between the ad, the
Yes.
video that was running.
Yes.
So there's no way you can stop the ad running. Yeah, and those are the things that broadcasters need to think through. Advertisers at the same time also need to realize that consumers have moved away. They're very fickle.
Yes.
They want something that catches them here and now, and then they move on to the next big thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's talk very quickly about the advent of the individual content producer, because we have started to see, especially with the advent of YouTube,
Yes.
people with channels and
Yes.
with huge followings, they put out dedicated content, very niche.
Yes.
And these are still eating away at the pie that traditional broadcasters have had.
Absolutely. Now, take case in point, Eric Omondi.
Yes.
And he, the other day, YouTube actually acknowledged him in terms of getting a lot of subscribers on board.
Yes.
Because that now becomes like a pipe.
Yes.
Where they can actually engage. So anytime he's doing anything a brand wants to associate or disassociate with him, he already comes on board and says, hey, you know what, this is what I can deliver. I'll give you a very interesting perspective. Oprah Winfrey, who everybody knows, has 14 million Instagram followers,
yes.
right? Now, 2 days before, she put up a very small video. It's normally about a minute,
Yes.
right? That video, as at this moment, has 21 million views.
Wow.
And she's talking about a dress and a hat
Yes.
made
the
by
royal
Stella
wedding,
McCartney.
yes.
Now, for brand users, can you imagine if Oprah is a platform talking to 21 million people
Yes.
about your brand?
Yeah, finally, the issues that we were talking about here earlier, agriculture, the
Yes.
fact that there's huge demand out there,
Yes.
there's huge aspect that needs to be addressed in various ways to create knowledge and education.
Yes.
But really not many people getting it right.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting aspects about Viewscape is that we've actually been able to embed what kind of content is actually being consumed while viewing videos. You'll be very surprised about what the 16 to 24-year-old males are doing relative to what the same age group, but females are doing. So, for example, the females would probably be viewing vlogs, things to do with beauty. The males would be consuming a very different content, which I don't want to speak about here. And they also do consume a bit of soccer. And then you can actually see the dynamics as they age through the generations.
Well, indeed, interesting conversation. Unfortunately, out of time. But just to say that the report is out, and of course that people can find it online. Where, if we wanted to get that report, would we be able to find it?
Okay, the report is available. It's a syndicated study that we've done in 19 markets. It's the first time we're doing it in Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. And it's actually interesting. Sorry, I know that we've run out of time. But what we've seen is the South Africans are actually consuming a lot more video. And then Kenya, and then Nigeria. Nigeria, of course,
huge market.
Huge market.
And their own dynamics of locally produced.
And setting trends through brands like Iroko, which are also trying to set up shop in Kenya. And one last thing I want to speak to is data. Because data is now becoming your new Bitcoin. Yeah. So the telcos are very wary about this. The advertisers are aware about this. And the last point I want to emphasize on is broadcasters thinking about other different ways of actually engaging their viewers.
Well, indeed, a huge conversation, very interesting. Of course, from the conversation about the cost of data, the bundling that has been going on the various products, unfortunately, out of time. But we will definitely have you in studio for another conversation because this report definitely does need unpacking. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
Asante.
Now, on that interesting and, of course, digital note, we want to leave it right there for KTN Business today. Up next is the news in Swahili on Bio KTN, but we'll be back same time tomorrow with more from the world of business. My name is Peter Kaba. It has been a pleasure. Kwaheri ya kuonana.